we good?
Timer.
Drum roll, please. Drum roll. You got it.
So real quick, I'm Kit. I am the elk.
I'm Steve, and I'm the coyote.
I'm Chris, I'm the bear.
I'm Marissa, and I'm a hummingbird.
I'm Sammy. I'm a tiger. I know we missed one person, and Allison. She is a dolphin.
And together we are Team Snacks.
It's kind of like snacks.
Snacks, which was the theme of all of our names.
Yes, so snacks is the initial of all of our names. If there wasn't an in there, we would have totally been snacks because that's definitely the most important part of every one of our meetings. So we're Aspen Camp, and to begin, that was our first choice. I think a lot of us had that on our list, and it was probably because that was where our first meeting was, so it had some sentimental value to all of us. When we first began, we had a gentleman by the name of Jeffrey. After Jeffrey, we went to Damien, and after Damien, we went to Max. So we had 3 different contacts throughout the process, which I would say was probably one of our bigger challenges. Our other challenge was that a lot of the things they wanted was technical. They wanted a lot of trail maintenance, building. Chris provided a ton of expertise on trees. If you have any questions or gardening questions, he'll be here after. And I'm not joking, it's unbelievable his knowledge on plants and trees, and they're not weeds, in case anybody was curious about aspen trees. And so one other thing about our group was that I know the past 2 groups have said at some point somebody wanted to leave. I don't think any of us ever experienced that. We were pretty cohesive the whole time, especially as a team and as a group, and it was really great to get to know these people.
So as Marissa mentioned, we had a ton of communication issues. So Jeffrey wrote the write-up, Damien presented it. Damien was also our first contact where we did our walkthrough of all 17 acres of the camp. Needless to say, it was dark, it was cold, and we were all dying by the end of it. But we had to rein that in. It was a walk with a huge amount of technical issues, and then we took it to try and find out what was it that they really needed it. Was there a technical aspect that we could complete while we were doing the rest of this project and helping them with the more adaptive side of things? So we went to the camp, we did the site walk. We addressed the fact that there was rotating sponsors and how we needed to rein it in, as well as no-shows. So that first session where we were supposed to sit down with our sponsors and do basically our contract, they weren't there. And so we were missing a lot of information that we needed. That is where we really sat down and said, like, okay, where are we gonna go? What's the adaptive challenge? What are they going through? And we discovered that a lot of it was turnover. They had people coming in and out all the time. Nothing was really being shared with the next person. So they were just coming to RFL and be like, hey, we have this issue, can you help us? And so having some of the history of that as well. It turns out a friend of mine was on last year's Aspen Camp. Allison's husband was on one of the years before, so we had a little bit of history, thankfully, from them to kind of help us determine what that adaptive challenge was.
Yeah, during this first meeting when we had walked with at the time Damien, he was pumped to see us come in, but he was looking for trail maintenance, like truly us get out there, pruning back stuff. He wanted us to build a wheelchair accessible climbing wall at one point, and we were like, oh my gosh, just beyond just the technical part of this is like a liability issue for you to ask unskilled people to make these, what will be handling some very complicated situations. So we kind of had a little bit of worry at first that we were going to get wrapped up in a very big technical problem and not even know how to wrap our heads around what technically we could do.
Yeah, so I was the liaison, and like these guys mentioned, we had some crazy communication issues. It was also a real challenge because it is the Aspen Deaf Camp, and all of our contacts, we had to organize a translator, we had to give a 2-week notice. It wasn't like we were just gonna call a meeting next Thursday. It was a very organized process that we had to go through with them about lining it up, where it was gonna be. I think you had 2 translators at every meeting. So which was really fascinating too. And to see how, like, we were doing some small talk in there, and the translators were translating our small talk to Max so he could understand like what we were just rapping about, and it was pretty cool. So we definitely had a challenge there, and the challenge with the 3 different people. I remember at one point Andrea called me and was like, "Have you heard from these people?" And so we had to do a little bit of extra work on that. Like we said, our site visits, figuring out who it was, kind of having that moment with them of like, pick a person and let us know. So there were points where we had to be stern, but I think we handled everything very professionally and very well. And like we said, our group kind of had that aha moment where we were like, this is not about technical stuff. They're gonna go in this same circle of destruction every year, like with that background. They are always looking for a trail work. They're always looking for it, but they never get anywhere past that. And so our group decided that it would be better to set them up for success for the future and deal with this adaptively rather than technically, like boots on the ground. We're gonna line them out with ideas to take care of this in the future, communications, resources, and that's pretty much where we went.
So what we did is a kind of a technical solution to our adaptive problem. Is we created a spreadsheet that was a bunch of resources, so that way they could have a starting point for a lot of their projects, contacts that we personally knew or just found online. We sat down after we had finally met with Max and we communicated with him like, hey, this is what we know, is this true? And it was kind of our come to Jesus moment with him of like, hey, if we're gonna say what we've been told, and if anything's wrong, correct us. And we're like, yeah, there's communication issues, there's this, there's that. He's like, yeah, no, you're all right. So that was great to finally be on the same page, even though there was still some communication lacking. But we mentioned this to him, we're like, hey, this is what we wanna do. And he's like, that's great, I just started, this would be amazing. So there's like 150 to 200 different contacts between volunteer groups, funding, general contractors that might donate time or equipment, and so that is what we presented to them. Maybe. Oh.
All right, so, once we got that nuts and bolts together with that directory idea, instead of focusing on these technical trail maintenance things, which truly was more of the brainchild of Damien as it turned out. And now that we were working with Max, the new executive director, he kind of helped us get back on track with what really would be helpful to them. We came up with this resource directory, and we actually came up with that at that meeting where they were a no-show. And we were a little worried at first, right? We didn't want to overstep or go down a track that then all of a sudden they'd come back and be like, wait, we already have this isn't useful to us. So it was really helpful then when we actually had our first meeting with Max. He had to bring in 2 translators, so we did a lot of in-person meetings for this entire project. I think maybe we did exactly 1 Zoom meeting, which he also actually was able to do signing for that, but we had to have those translators in the Zoom call as well. So, we talked about kind of where we were at, our concerns about where we had started, where Damien had kind of let us down, and where we were worried we were getting a little off track. And how we had come up with this idea of a resource directory so that regardless of who is in charge there year to year, regardless of who's calling the shots, they can all pull from this directory. And he really liked that idea. He actually wanted us to give him some resources in the end. That was what he was going to come and ask us for, both from a fundraising perspective, how to get some of these events going for them to fundraise, how to get better volunteer contacts so that they can get more turnout for their volunteer events. As well as then, this is the kind of our little technical piece, he had a lot of forestry management questions. If you remember when we were there, their entire property meanders along that creek. It is more or less a natural, native, unmanaged area, minus the trails that have been cut in over the years. There's some complications with ditches that run through their property. There's the whole facility side of everything that they, and so we decided that as part of this directory, the technical piece we were going to really try to focus on to help give him some sort of deliverable beyond that directory was another site visit where I could kind of help point him in the direction. We could decide what kind of volunteer work us as a group could participate in. with what he was looking for as far as that forestry management. So was that March, late March, early April? We did a second site visit. We asked him, please don't make us walk the 17 acres of land again. While it was very exciting when we did it the first time, it was a lot, and we honestly weren't sure if we were going to be walking in a foot of snow again like we did the first time. But he said, no, definitely we're not doing that. We actually walked around. It was a much more meaningful conversation, more productive conversation this time around. He had very clear questions for us, things that he needed from us. And we actually focused a lot on tree management. That's kind of where I stepped in. If you look at this group, I'm helping him with tree questions, and everybody else is chattering about how crazy it is. I know all these random things and all these contacts. And so that's where we also got out of him very specific contacts he was looking for that we could add later to that directory to make it more meaningful for him specifically. So we did this walk around. We looked at, there was a couple trees that actually had blown over the winter. On top of, if you remember, there were trees already blown over. There was a lot of stuff that was in disrepair from a forestry standpoint. And he wasn't really sure where to go. He thought he could just hire someone with a chainsaw and have him go at it. If you know anything about Picken County and there's water on your property, that's a big no-no, right? So we helped guide him through what that process would look like. We didn't actually do it for him, but we've set up now the resources and kind of a little step-by-step for where he needs to look to be able to make that progress on his own. We also talked about volunteer days, because that was originally what we had talked to Damien about, was us coming out as a volunteer day, maybe organizing a larger one to help with some of these trail maintenance items. And he, at that point, shared with us, they actually already have volunteer days. So we actually then also included some ways that he'd give better outreach for those volunteer events, because I was surprised as someone who lives less than 20 minutes away, I'd never even heard of any of this stuff. And I think there's a lot of people that would be very interested in that sort of volunteer work if they just knew that it was happening, when it was happening. And he explained how they try to keep it very relaxed, where people can come and go as they want. There's no commitments, like you sign up and you're there for the 3 days, you're staying in the woods sort of stuff. It's very much a come and go as you please, get your groups that you want to join. They'll find things for you to do once you show up. So we were really happy after we had this meeting. We felt like we were all on the same page. We had some things to button up with that directory to make it a little bit more personal for him, so more meaningful for him to be able to actually pull immediate contacts out of there. But we also included a lot of very general information for whether he may know it or not. The next person that comes along may or may not know those things as well. We could include that as a giant Excel spreadsheet that he can just keep in their files from here on out. We do have, as kind of a last follow-up item with them, we're going to deliver that directory in the next week here, as we just wanted to button a few formatting things up. But we all have kind of expressed interest in joining one of those volunteer weekends. So we'll be looking into those dates. I believe there's a summer date in May coming up.
Yeah, it's the last weekend of May, so after Memorial Day, they're doing, I believe it's 3 days. I think it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's on Facebook, if you go to their Facebook. But it's a big cleanup day for the spring, so if anybody's around and available, they could really use the help and would appreciate it from everybody.
Yeah, and there is an additional fall date.
Yes, and they're doing a fall gala. I guess it's called a gala at Tactile. I think it's October. I don't know. It's October something.
It's in my
I don't know if you, yeah.
Yeah, they have a date.
They do.
Yeah, they emailed us
Yeah,
all.
they've waffled on the date of
They
that.
emailed us all,
Yeah.
and we're happy to share that with you guys as well. But they are doing a fall charity event, so with tables and all the above.
Yep, so if anybody's interested on those aspects, just come find one of us after and we can get you more details.
And so that was kind of our project in a nutshell. But we wanted to spend the rest of the time talking about these lovely
us.
t-shirts and us,
All right.
and where they come from.
So smack. The first for Steve, he is Coyote.
Yeah.
So
Steve's gonna share how we came
So-
up with this.
I'm blowing it right now, but what was it called? The caring of the heart? Our
Encouraging
last
of the heart.
encouraging of the heart,
Yeah.
sorry. So at the encouraging of the heart, I thought we were all doing our thing for each other, and I really like Kung Fu Panda. I came up with animals because it helped me to relate to who these people are, and I guess I just kind of dig that. So I came up with these names for everyone, and I guess we can just go through it. You guys just want to go through it now? They kind of gave me the coyote. I'll start with that one because I didn't give myself one, and And I guess
Sammy's gonna tell us
Sammy's
about
gonna
it.
oh, Sammy's gonna read it?
We wanted to give her some more things to share with you all.
Please
so
do.
go
All
ahead.
right, so for Steve, clever, resilient, and Leslie upbeat. So Steve is the coyote at the heart of the pack. His quick thinking and resourcefulness make him a natural problem solver, and his unwavering positivity lifts and motivates those around him, which is thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Sam.
He's all scratched.
Let him share what you want to learn.
Yeah, and what you learned about this project?
I think I learned that to trust the process, like you always said, and I really didn't. I don't know if the first couple sessions I really knew what you were talking about, Andrea, but now I do. And I did trust the process, and that, like, you know, we kind of all hung together through this, and we trusted each other. We all had each other's backs when things came up and down, and I think we did really well balancing it all out. And I learned that, you know, sometimes you can take a step back. My job was the liaison. So really all I was doing was trying to communicate with these guys. And, you know, we were all in our meetings and everything, but I didn't really have to be the leader this time. And in my other job and stuff, usually that's sort of my role through my life and management. So this was kind of refreshing, and it was kind of cool to just take a different perspective, stay in my lane, watch others, and it was very, I don't know, yeah, refreshing and learning that, hey man, it's okay to do that. Like you can, on this project, you take a step back and you have a different role, you know, and you don't always have to be driving the ship. So it was really cool. Thank you.
And he's scrappy.
Yes.
Scrappy.
And apologize about this last section. We changed it last minute with Allison not being able to make it, so apologies that we're bouncing back
Yeah.
and forth a little
Okay.
bit.
So the next one is Marisa is always in motion, so quick-witted, observant, and Leslie resourceful. She brings vibrant energy everywhere she goes, and whether it's a new adventure or a well-crafted cocktail, she knows how to savor the moment.
It doesn't have to be a well-crafted cocktail. It can come straight from a can. Just to be clear. And you know, I kind of learned to trust each other because you come into this group and you really don't know a ton about anyone here or the people that you're going to be with, and you really got to depend on them to fill you in when you're not available to attend a session and to step up for each leadership role. So just really just trust each other and be willing to adapt. Like Allison not being able to show up today, we all kind of just stepped up and understand that life happens. Everyone's got things and stuff. So.
Okay, so for Allison, which is she's not here, she represents the dolphins. She's graceful, sharp, and deeply intuitive. Allison is every bit the dolphins. So navigating life's currents with intellect and purpose. She gets things done with ease, cares deeply for her pod, and brings harmony and insight wherever she goes. So the next one is Chris, the bear. So Chris is presenter of a bear. So he's strong, steady, and unafraid of any challenge. So he leads with quiet confidence, charging forward when others hesitate, and offering strength and protection to those who follow.
And you know, it's interesting that when we did our encouraging the heart experience where everybody gave feedback, a theme I got was that everybody said I was really confident. I exuded confidence, whether it was quiet or I helped do things. And I've shared this, I've struggled with internally, I don't feel very confident, right? I have a lot of self-consciousness, a lot of anxiety. Since college, I've kind of always see myself as that, and in my mind I feel like I'm projecting that lack of confidence. And so one of the biggest things I had almost like an epiphany in this last week with thinking about like what I learned with this program is that I actually do exude confidence, and I have shifted that whether or not internally I recognize that. And I need to learn to move past that kind of internal preconception of myself and trust that other perspectives, which is actually one of my things, the perspective leadership, is trust that other people are seeing me how I want them to see them, and not how my internal kind of monologue is seeing myself.
That's why you're the bear. You
And Kit is the elk. She's wise and deeply protective. Her decisions are firm yet fair, always made with her loved ones in mind. She lives the quiet strength, putting others before herself without hesitation.
All these people made me cry at the encouraging the heart. One of the things that I have learned about myself, it's funny because they also brought up organization, which is a coping mechanism for ADHD, depression, and anxiety. And so I also don't have a whole lot of confidence. I stay organized, trying to, power through things that I deal with every day. But I also, as mentioned, think outwardly a lot about the people around us. So I tend to be very good at helping others get through their hard times, but not always at helping myself. For example, we had Steve that was being a caretaker for a family member as well as his very important job. We had Chris, who his husband broke both shoulders and wrists this winter, slipping on ice at the same time. And he became caretaker while also being this very important person at work. We have Allison, who can't be here today because she has been dealing with a lot of family things and having to travel out east. But we all went through something during this program, personally, work-wise, everything. Mine personally, which I'm starting to shake even talking about, is I made the decision to take my abuser to court and stand up for myself, whether win or lose. It was the principle of it, and I relied heavily on these people. When we went to the first site visit, I had either just been preparing or just finished up with it that day, and I was not doing well mentally, and I told them, and we decided to cut that meeting short and make it a half, and then do a second meeting to follow up with everything else.
So we ran 17 acres.
Yeah, we went through the whole 17 acres, and then we decided we were gonna take a break and reconvene when everybody could be present. And I learned during this process that I can be outward and help everybody else, but I need to also prioritize myself as a leader sometimes and take the time for myself, which ironically I'm doing in 2 weeks, and or in a week, and saying, nope, I'm done with everything. I'm gonna focus on myself for 2 weeks. So I'm just very thankful, and that's what I learned.
And last but not least is Sammy. Sammy's our tiger. She's a force of nature and channels the bold spirit of a tiger, fearless, driven, and unstoppable. She moves through life with strength and conviction, turning ambition into reality and never backing down from what she sets her sights on.
So what I have learned from this program is the other thing that's learn from this one is about supportive, and encourage each other. That is something that's really important, and that's how our group covered today. The other thing is being patient, which is not my strong suit, but I've learned from this group a lot, listening, and get the feedback, being a person who giving feedback and receive that feedback is make me kind of okay, Sammy, you need to calm, even you haven't count to 1 million. That is something that I have learned, but yeah, I've learned a lot from this Roy Corp leadership program. Thank you.
We also learned that Sammy had to have food at every meeting. And it was a big thing. We met at my office at TRG, and we always had a dinner, which helped us all stay in good spirits too, so we were doing these afterwards. But she took care of us in that way without knowing about it, not realizing.
And you learned some new words.
Yes.
Like pheromone.
Oh yeah.
Yes, we had a whole experience with the signers, but there are words, the weird words that can be signed out, like pheromones. I couldn't repeat what it looked like. It was a lot of
It was a lot. It was painful enough, so it was a lot. And very fast. So Q&A. Yes, sir.
I thought you had a question.
I did too.